Hi guys, this is Chris here, and I thought I wanted to do a quick video because in the past few months we are seeing a lot of activity in the cryptocurrency and Bitcoin space. In fact, a lot of this activity is actually coming from an institutional level, meaning to say that we are seeing hedge funds investors as well as banks as well as Nasdaq listed companies coming to become more involved in the cryptocurrency space. So what I want to touch on is actually Bitcoin purchases by real world companies and why Bitcoin is being purchased by companies such as Square and such as MicroStrategy. Little bit about the timeline of events that have happened in the couple of months past. It started out, I would say, in May 2020, just after a huge crash in the market due to COVID. This macro investor called Paul Tudor Jones, came out and said that he's buying Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation. Why is there inflation? Well, we all know that the US, and not just the US, but central banks around the world, they are printing money to combat the economic effects that COVID has had on all their economies and all their financial markets. Well, money printing is not going to solve economic problems, but it is probably going to prop up the financial markets. So central banks are being the printer of money of last resort, and they are just putting a backstop on stock prices all around. The downside of this is that while it saves a lot of investors from losing money, it actually eventually would become inflationary, right? There's a huge debate going on whether it is going to be deflationary due to COVID or inflationary because of money printing, but we're going to put that aside. I'm going to keep it simple. And the concept of money being printed out into the market, it generally has an inflationary effect on all asset classes. So Paul Tudor Jones says that he's buying Bitcoin to hedge against that. In August 2020, a Nasdaq listed company called MicroStrategy announced that they would be purchasing Bitcoin themselves in their treasury. So they have actually called the cryptocurrency to be superior to cash. One of their concerns is the same as Paul Tudor Jones, that there was going to be a debasement of the US dollars, and essentially due to the low yield environment. Typically, they have been buying short-term treasuries, but the yields have gotten so low that it doesn't make sense for them. After that, in October 2020, Square, also Nasdaq listed, said to be putting 1% or announced that they'll be putting 1% of their total assets in Bitcoin, and that would amount to a $15 million investment. And in the same month, October 2020, PayPal, right, we all know the company, they have announced that they're going to embrace crypto, and they will be allowing that conversion of cryptocurrency to fiat, which is US dollar, Sing dollar, and fiat currency back to crypto. So this is going to be happening as early as January of 2021. So a lot of exciting things that's happening, and today I want to focus everybody on MicroStrategy. CEO is called Saylor, I believe, Saylor. So here are 3 reasons, right, after reading some interviews, the things that he said. These are 3 reasons why MicroStrategy have adopted Bitcoin. So some of it he has come up to say it outright, but I'm gonna infer one extra point after this. Okay, so just stick around and I'll share with you what I infer from all these things that you've said as well. The first thing that he mentioned is that Bitcoin is a hedge against QE infinity. So it's a hedge against governments printing money non-stop. So he says that he wants to preserve his treasury, and the purchasing power of $500 million, that was how much cash he had, was reducing, right? And he actually used an analogy that it is like a melting block of ice. So he wants to maintain the value and the purchasing power of his $500 million treasury. So he's going to put some of that, or he has already placed some of that, a huge sum of I think 250 million into Bitcoin. The second, like why Bitcoin compared to other altcoins such as Ripple or Litecoin or even Ethereum. So I quote him and he says, we find global acceptance, brand recognition, ecosystem vitality, network dominance, architectural resilience, technical utility, and community ethos to be persuasive evidence of its superiority as an asset class for those seeking a long-term store of value. So in a nutshell, what he is actually saying is he finds Bitcoin, the entire ecosystem of Bitcoin, the community behind Bitcoin, to be far superior to all other asset classes or all other cryptocurrencies out there. I would say in a more layman terms, or how I interpret it, is that he feels that Bitcoin is more proven. It's been around for 11 years. He has survived a lot of what we call forks. So a fork is where the community is divided and they want to split off or they want to change things or there's some contention. Bitcoin has survived that. It has ecosystem vitality and network dominance, meaning to say that there's a lot of computing power making the network very secure. At the same time, a lot of exchanges around the world, a lot of attention, a lot of recognition is on Bitcoin. So while the technology of the Bitcoin blockchain is not that difficult to duplicate, the adoption and the acceptance by all the various different stakeholders around the world, that is actually difficult to move. So there is a network effect that has taken place, and as a result it is hard to replicate, and as a result there is a kind of like a moat around Bitcoin. So it is the more proven of all cryptocurrencies out there. Third, of course, if given that his Saylor's original intention is to maintain purchasing power, why don't he just invest in gold? So he actually mentioned that to him, gold is an antiquated approach to storing value, meaning to say it is a little bit outdated. He believes that gold is not as good as storing value because the gold miners can always mine for more gold and there will always be new supply coming in. Aside from that, he believes that the concept of storing value in gold and holding gold is a very old school, a very historically driven, kind of like a habitual way of storing value. There's not too much ingenuity that is built around it. It is just the fact that gold has existed for so long and is seen as a store of value for so long that most people would just continue in this manner. So once again, you see gold actually has a network effect that is hard to move on. Now, why he chose Bitcoin compared to gold is that other than the fact that he feels gold is a little bit outdated, he has this opinion that eventually gold investors would find out about Bitcoin and they would begin to see a much more attractive approach to the storing of value within Bitcoin itself. He defines it as a superior store of value, and eventually some of these gold investors would move over to Bitcoin. So one of the interesting things about this is that I personally do not see Bitcoin replacing gold. However, I do see Bitcoin taking away some of the investor share when it comes to gold. There will always be a huge number of people who buy gold and store their value within it, but the truth is we are seeing some shift, meaning to say in the past some gold investors, they have stopped investing in gold and moved over to Bitcoin, and there is a flow of such investors. Typically the boomers or the older generation, they would think that gold is safer and they would believe that the value or the US dollar value of gold eventually goes higher. Whereas younger generations who are more digital natives, they might see a higher value proposition in terms of Bitcoin. Easier to move around, it has gone up over the past few years as well, proving itself as a store of value. There is scarcity to it, and all the other earlier things that Saylor actually, or that I actually mentioned, why MicroStrategy chose to buy into Bitcoin, because it's the most proven. It has that branding. There's so much awareness around it. So we are really seeing more adoption coming around Bitcoin, and even Michael Saylor, that is the CEO himself, in the past, so that was back in 2013, he actually announced that Bitcoin days are numbered and it's going to be a matter of time before it dies out. But fast forward to 2020, he has actually changed his view by 180 degrees and in fact invest his money into Bitcoin. So this is an example of how investors are changing their opinion about Bitcoin. And I'm not talking about retail investors or gamblers, who wants to just dabble in Bitcoin, but I'm talking about smart people, right? Hedge fund managers, CEOs, they begin to see the value proposition and they begin to adopt a certain Bitcoin standard. Right now, I got this from Delphi Digital Research. Right now, I feel like this is quite a good reflection of where we are on the Bitcoin investor progression. We have gone past this grassroots, which is the initial early, testers and investors in Bitcoin. We have kind of gone past crypto VC, hedge funds, and the early retail investor stage as well. Right now, we are slowly moving into global macro and family offices, and these are where guys like MicroStrategy and Square, they begin to come in and buy. Eventually, when it becomes more stable, we will begin to see pensions and endowments, and these are the safer kind of funds, slowly coming to Bitcoin as well. Most of the wealth around the world are in this two portion right here, right? The institutions, pension, endowment funds, and all these other private wealth management and various other funds. So we are seeing the infrastructure taking place, right? Big banks like DBS, they are starting their own cryptocurrency custodian, cryptocurrency exchanges. All this just paved the way for mainstream investments to actually come in. So once again, I just want to end off really quickly with this timeline and remind everyone that PayPal is going to open up the gates to millions of investors around the world, where they will be able to easily exchange their Sing dollar, US dollar, fiat currency for crypto. So I would say that in 2021 it's going to be a really exciting time, and that's all I have for today. So if you guys are really interested to learn more about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin investing, I'm doing a masterclass as well, and I want to invite you to come join me. And this is where I can go a little bit more in depth, talk about some of the features of Bitcoin, share a little bit about my experience, how I got started in crypto, what are the things that I look out for, what are some of the strategies and systems that I feel are important. And I welcome you to join me for the next one. So I hope this short video has been educational and useful for you, and let me know, right, if it is good, and I shall see you guys either during the masterclass or in future sessions and videos. Bye.